This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off. All right, hey guys, this is Paul here today with Justin Harris and Joe Miller from First Detachment Nutrition. I wanted to bring these guys on. We are working together now. They are sponsoring my channel, and I wanted to talk to them and introduce them to all of you. Hey, Joe. Hey, Justin. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
Good.
So tell us about what's going on.
Yeah, I can kind of give a little context. So obviously, I've been on the channel before a little bit. Justin and I, just to take a step back, we've known each other about 20 years. Back in the early 2000s, we competed together. We were coaches together. Actually,
Joe was actually Project Super Heavyweight. Joe trained with Steve Kuklo and I. Joe was the third person who I can't remember if you had started at Lifetime recently then. But
yeah,
it was Joe, Steve Kuklo, and I who trained together, and we filled Project Super Heavyweight. And I think Joe had just started at Lifetime and could no longer do because we trained in the morning, and so Joe missed out on that fun. But we trained together for several years, and he was actually one of the first nutritionists on Troponin Nutrition with me. Also before I think you went to Lifetime, yeah. And so we've known each other for quite some time.
That's funny. I remember buying that video a long time ago. I remember you selling it. I bought that video and watched you guys train.
Yeah, probably mailed in like a manila envelope with handwritten address and everything.
I have a couple of claims to fame. One of them is like there's one of your like million plus views squat videos. You can see my pants in the background. I'm like, hey, those are my pants. I'm like, look at that quad sweep, you know. But yeah, no, we kind of stayed in contact, but both got really busy, and then just about a couple of years ago we reconnected. We're looking to do some stuff in the medical field together, and still looking to do that probably like 2024, late 2023. Got some plans for that, but just really always wanted to kind of reconnect and rework together, and then an opportunity came up with First Detachment. So I decided to partner up, obviously Justin with his expertise and quality and the products and things, and some of my background. So we're just kind of excited to get this thing rolling and get some good product and good service out there to everybody.
Yeah, I like the thing I like about your products, and I know this is probably not the best way to phrase it, but they are made for guys like me that use PEDs.
Yeah, I mean, we have the entire PCMS line. That's the QRF for liver health, renal reset for kidney health, suppressor for insulin sensitivity, Canopy for the digestion aid for the people who are eating the type of food, the food volume you're eating, which is quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, it really was. We thought, because you think mainstream, obviously has the most people, but who's buys supplements? Housewives don't buy supplements, and if they do, they go on Amazon and search for vitamin D or whatever they want. People who buy supplements and buy a brand are people are more or less hardcore people who are really involved in the sport. Young kids that are really guys that are trying to learn. People like you who are dedicated and serious, and then also concerned about their health or want to keep themselves healthy so they can stay in the sport for a long time. But it's really, I think, and I heard Fouad Aviad say this, and I don't want to plagiarize him, but he said he thinks what worked for him is that he wasn't, they weren't ashamed to be bodybuilders, or they weren't ashamed to say they love the sport. And I feel like we're the same way. We are bodybuilders, we are powerlifters, we come from the sport, and we want to honor the sport, and we love the sport, and so we want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I thought it was very slick how you had certain supplements that are engineered to help alleviate some of the side effects we get from PEDs. I know we talked about it before the call, but I ran QRF on this contest prep, and I was taking a halo test at the end, and my liver values were the lowest they've ever been after contest prep. 1 week after contest prep, my ALT and AST were in the high 20s. I've never had that. They were like 300 last year. Yeah,
it's a great product. It's expensive to produce and hard to produce. We don't make a lot of money on it, but it's one of our better sellers, and we really don't even push it because it sells. People use it and they see immediate effect from it. We've got, a couple good things. I've had several type 2 diabetic clients who have completely got off metformin or whatever other blood pressure or blood sugar medication they were on by using our suppressor. It's got 1,500 milligrams of berberine and other ingredients, with stuff I've talked about for years. But I have, real world data with several people with, A1Cs nearing 7, fasted blood sugar levels in the 160, 170 range, who are now waking up with fasted blood sugar levels consistently under 100 and often under 90, and with A1Cs now under 6, effectively no longer being type 2 diabetics and off their prescription medications even at this point.
Yeah, I've always had issues with my glucose running high. I don't know if I'm pre-diabetic or whatever, but I'm also running that as well, and I've had good luck with it. I haven't had my A1C tested again since I started it, but I noticed my glucose levels are in the 90s again.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that too. Is just as far as the products and how they work and how they're formulated is, the core, as Justin said, like the core is the more hardcore athlete. But in my experience and kind of the general health sectors, I spent a good amount of time in the kind of the corporate world and that, and then also in the medical field and looking at general population, like labs and things. Like, we're going to stay true to our brand and who we are and hardcore that. But there's also a lot of people that I know, friends and family members, that are just more your general, they work out here and there, but not as hardcore, but they're seeing a lot of the great health benefits from it. And so seeing kind of, just how those other things can help them. I mean, I think we talked about before, maybe on one of the videos, like metformin and how great it works for the things that it does relative to blood sugar. But also I know 3 or 4 people in my family that can't take it, and they need it because of the GI stress that it puts on. Yeah, it's really bad. So by switching to this product, I have 3 of my closest family members actually that were, switched over to use a suppressor and seeing, similar results in their blood work and from their physicians, which is pretty cool to see.
And there's more than just that too. As a bodybuilder, metformin can lower appetite, which if you're trying to add size is not what you want to do. But there's a secondary thing you don't want also. Metformin works through cyclic AMP, which is like an anti-inflammatory process that's actually counter to hypertrophy. Now if you're on PEDs, obviously poor insulin sensitivity and high blood sugar isn't promoting muscle growth either. So you want to fix that. But the problem is if the fix for that is something that's anti-hypertrophy, that's counter to hypertrophy, that's kind of putting, you're putting like walking uphill on a backwards escalator. Maybe you can run really fast, but you still got to go against that backward escalator when you're using something like that. Where berberine conversely works through IGF-1. IGF-1 is actually more insulinogenic on a milligram per milligram basis than actual insulin. And so metformin works similarly to improve insulin sensitivity, but it also works through IGF-1 to basically promote insulinegenesis, which is the most potent stimulator of insulin receptors, really. So it's doubly effective in that it controls blood sugar where you don't want elevated blood sugar. That's going to slow muscle growth, but it also doesn't hinder muscle growth by the actual product like metformin does.
Yeah, and I've seen it with with a lot of the guys that I work with, especially the over 40 bodybuilders. It seems to be the limiting factor with a lot of the dudes is insulin sensitivity and glucose uptake. As soon as I get guys fixed in that area, they start growing. I get a lot of middle-aged bodybuilders that come to me. It's just like, I can't grow anymore, and we address that through berberine and sometimes metformin and better dietary choices. But it does seem to have an impact with people growing, significant impact, and body composition too. I've seen guys improve body composition. Yeah. I know with me, I stay leaner. I will say metformin does crush my appetite sometimes. I struggle with my appetite, but I have noticed since I have been using suppressor and berberine that my body composition is much better.
Yeah, and you can imagine
what happened. Food.
Yeah, I mean, insulin has a purpose. It absorbs things, and so I always show a picture. Insulin, I always view it as like a basket, and the insulin hormone fits in that receptor. It goes in that receptor, and what happens is it shuffles some proteins around in that cell, and it's basically like opening a shower drain. You take a bathtub or a bath or whatever, and you close the drain, the water fills up. You open that drain, the water gets sucked down. That's what that insulin does. It opens up the channels that allow nutrients to flow in, and most importantly, it allows amino acid uptake, a higher rate of amino acid uptake. So if that cell is stimulated for muscle protein synthesis and you have poor insulin sensitivity and insulin can't bind to that receptor, that cell's trying to synthesize new muscle and it can't because your insulin sensitivity is low. You increase that insulin sensitivity, that receptor is now responsive to the insulin. Insulin fits in that receptor, shows those proteins around. Now that cell that wants to build muscle sucks in amino acids and actually builds the muscle.
Yeah, I've seen it happen over and over again. Older guys, we address that, and then they start growing.
Yeah.
Every time I run into an older guy that can't grow, it's almost always an insulin sensitivity issue.
Yep.
Are you? Yeah, and I'm curious, Paul. Are you using like a immediate release metformin that's affecting your appetite, or extended release, or what?
No, I don't use the XR. I use the regular.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious if that would help with that. I've seen a mixed feedback on that and on the medical side, and then I think we were talking a while back too that there's some creams out there I know that are compounded that metformin is in too, that kind of supposed to like lower the GI stress. But myself personally, I was all pumped about the creams and still just was like, on the toilet all the time. So I'm like, well, this is good. So I had to switch.
Metformin works, and you need to improve insulin sensitivity, but that's why my first defense is always a Berberine product like suppressor, because metformin is fighting against you two ways. A, the cyclic AMP, which is, counter to hypertrophy, and then B, if it kills your appetite. So there's two pathways that it can negatively affect muscle growth, and only one pathway that it can improve muscle growth. Where you have like suppressor, it improves muscle growth through insulin sensitivity, but it also works through IGF-1, which improves muscle growth. So it's just, it's all beneficial. Obviously, if that's not enough, you need to look to metformin. But in my experience, the 1,500 milligrams, the dose of suppressor seems to be approximately equal in improving insulin sensitivity to about 1,000 milligrams of metformin per day.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive for an over-the-counter supplement that it can do that much.
Yeah, hopefully it stays over the counter. That's the problem. As soon as the FDA finds out it works, we'll see.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, I know there was the issue with that, with NAC, which is in the QRF product.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why it was hard to produce. Yeah,
I think they've backed off on that now. It seems. I don't know where that stands, but NAC is very effective.
Yeah, you have to do some. Yeah, you have to do some tricky things, and it's got to be like you under additional scrutiny, But it's difficult to produce, which is why, like I said, it's our margins aren't as high on that, but it's. I mean, I'm a bodybuilder. We're bodybuilders first and foremost, and so if we were purely a money-making business, maybe that wouldn't have been our first choice. But we look at it as produce what works and what people will use, and make a better product than everyone else, and things will fall into place, rather than coming at it as just trying to make a product with the highest margins. In which case, we wouldn't have the NAC, and we wouldn't have an effective product. So,
I mean, NAC works. There's just no two ways around it. So does Berberine. Berberine works as good as any pharmaceutical.
Yeah.
I was going to mention, Justin, I think you've talked about this a lot. I'm sure, like, Paul, with a lot of your viewers are, I would assume, well, you probably have a mixture, but I would assume, a lot of them are maybe early in their bodybuilding as well, or looking to kind of have those long-term.
The majority of the guys. The majority of the guys that watch my channel are middle-aged when I look at the demographics.
Okay, interesting.
Nice.
Old guy bodybuilding.
Well, there's a lot of them then, because there's a lot of people watching it. So
yeah.
I think the point I was trying to make on that is, I think, like, just thinking back to me in my early 20s when, Justin mentioned, like, me, him, Steve, a couple other people that went on to do really well in the sport were training, and some of them were gone in their late 20s, early 30s out of the sport for a number of reasons, but the main one being they just didn't take care of their health. So I think, like, that's a big thing that Justin's always preached is, if you can put on, you probably have heard him say this before, and I'm sure he'll say it after I mess it up, but 5 pounds a year over 10 years is 50 pounds of stage weight, right? But you have to be able to last that 10 years, and a lot of damage can be done if people are using the wrong things, not taking care of it, not doing the maintenance work they do, or supplementing the health side of it to kind of keep the system clean and going forward. And that, there's a lot, there are a good amount, I'm sure they've taken really good care of their bodies as well as genetics, but there's also others that it's an uphill battle.
Well, there's been more than others. I mean, go online, bodybuilders are dropping like flies, and it's really insanity, because there's only a few things you need to take care of. Nearly all of the health problems stem from high blood pressure. Your blood pressure, I've talked about this before. It's really kidneys, but it stems from blood pressure. Your kidneys are like a filter. If you think of a coffee filter and you run it under, soft rainwater, that's going to filter rainwater forever. You put that coffee filter under a fire hose, all that high pressure, it's going to tear apart the coffee filter. It's no longer going to filter. And that's what happens. People use orals. They do things that spike their blood pressure. They don't take care of their blood pressure. That eventually blows out their kidneys. The heart's response to that is that it's working against the bigger pressure. And so the heart muscle grows thicker. The way the heart works is the muscle doesn't grow outside the heart. It grows inside the cavity. So the cavity gets smaller. The heart rate increases. The next thing it has to do to try to keep up with the filtration requirements, because it can only beat so fast, is its last move is to dilate, kind of like a last ditch effort. And you'll get dilated cardiomyopathy. And then that'll damage the kidneys even more because your fluid volume will increase. And then if you notice all these bodybuilders, what everyone says, I saw him last week. He said he's dealing with pneumonia, or I saw him last week. He had some kind of chest cold. He said he wasn't feeling so great, but he's thinking he's getting better. That's what it is, because that end stage of that is pulmonary edema, fluid buildup back into the lungs. And that's why all these bodybuilders have pneumonia. And it's silly, because all of this could be prevented, and you can push things pretty hard. I mean, I'm not one of those guys saying, use baby doses. The sport is the way the sport is, but you can push things if you're just smart about it. Take care of your liver health, keep your insulin sensitivity high, track your blood pressure, get your blood work. And then when you get your blood work and you see things out of whack, use a product like we have to fix that problem. If your AST, ALT are elevated, get on QRF. If your blood sugar and A1C are elevated, get on suppressor. It's all, if your digestion is terrible, before you get colitis, before you get IBS, like every bodybuilder ends up getting from pounding food for a year and year, get on Canopy. We designed a digestion product. Everyone else designs digestion products based on like acidophilus as the only thing they put in, or all they care about is probiotics. We put in a product that was like designed specifically for guys that are eating a lot, so you don't develop IBS. Like every bodybuilder's got digestive issues after they've been in sport for 10 years. If you're going to eat pounds of chicken and rice, you need something to help that also. And so that's all it is. Just track things and be smart about it. And you can be pretty aggressive with stuff for a long period of time and walk away without health problems.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, like the correlations of like a hardcore bodybuilder and some of the damages they'll have from getting bigger, but it's kind of similar that like for the super obese or the metabolic syndrome people and like the general population have these issues, because I have noticed, getting some digestive aid, like they have, like, because they're eating so much, they're obviously bodybuilders is different, good quality food, but they're still getting like some of the same issues where like when people are eating just garbage for years too, they're getting those issues. So it's nice to see all those things that can help and kind of get ahead of that. But yeah, it's just interesting to me that as the body gets bigger, like it needs extra support and puts extra strain on it.
I mean, I'm almost 50 and I'm still doing it. I don't know if I should use myself as the example, but I've always been pretty conservative with my gear usage. I think Justin told me I was using suboptimal amounts one time.
You're on the low end for sure.
But I've always tried to play it conservative, and then monitor my health as well. I get blood work done. I do things. It's still a dangerous activity at the end of the day. I tell people I used to ride motorcycles. You're increasing risk by getting just the very fact of getting on the motorcycle and riding it, but there are things that you can do to mitigate risk.
Yes.
Like wear a helmet, drive safely, take a defensive driving course. It's just like with bodybuilding, managing your blood pressure, keeping an eye on your blood work, like you said, not running stupid orals and trying year round. The dumb shit that I see the 25-year-olds doing all the time. DBOL and trend 365 days of the year.
Yeah, and you have to consider where are all the top guys in the sport? What age are they? 38 to 42, I mean, guys aren't winning the Olympia at 23 anymore. You don't reach your peak in the sport till around age 40. You have to consider that. Like, you want to be the best 25-year-old you can be, yes. But if being the best 25-year-old means you're no longer in the sport when you would be your best bodybuilder and your best chance to actually make money in the sport, then you're doing something wrong. And so anything you're doing, you have to consider the fact that if you're 25, you have 15 years before you're actually going to fully reap the financial rewards from that work. And if you're doing stuff that's going to mean by age 30, you got health problems or out of the sport, then what was the point of it all? Because you never even got to see what you could become because you blew yourself out before you got even anywhere near your prime.
And there's only so much muscle protein synthesis you can stimulate in a given time anyway. It's the bell curve of, when you push things too far, it's the descending gains. I look at it as a cost versus benefit ratio. Where is the top of that curve at? and I want to be at the top of that
Well,
curve, not or
exactly.
slightly behind it.
Yeah, not above it. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. No one takes stock. No one does that with anything they do. It's like, there's a linear path, and where are you on that path? I'm here. My goal's here. Where am I on that? And you can look at other people. Let's say, okay, who's the fastest growing human in history? It would be probably like Big Ramy or Nick Walker. Nick Walker's, burst on the scene. So let's take him. He did his first show in 2012. He's gained 100 pounds of contest weight since then. I mean, that's amazing. Like if you do your first show and you're, 180 or 185, that means you're 285 pounds in 10 years. And competing at the Mr. Olympia, anyone would say that's an amazing rate of progress, right? That's 12 pounds a year. That's 1 pound per month. If you break that down to the actual weight of the protein, you say 500 grams of protein is 1.1 pounds, of protein weight. If you break that down, you're talking about 18 grams of protein per day on average. There's 24 hours in a day. Nick Walker has been synthesizing less than 1 gram of protein per hour to new muscle, and he's the fastest growing human in history. So you think about that per hour. So if you eat every 3 hours, that means at most, and he's been under this, but on average, in that 3 hour span, he's synthesized about 2 grams of new muscle protein. So that's for every meal. So how many grams of protein are you eating that meal? 50, 60, 70, 40, 100? The most any human on earth is synthesizing is 2 grams of that. So rather than just blindly throw things at the problem, like the dartboard's over here, let me just start throwing darts at it. Think of what you're doing, because that's your upper limit. Everything you're doing is bound by that. So we have very limited protein synthesis. So rather than just pour protein at the problem, let's make sure we're maximizing the ability of the protein we eat to be synthesized. That means proper carbohydrate uses. That means proper healthy fat uses. Let's make sure that the gear we're using is maximizing that. Because, when guys do these mega cycles for 8 weeks, you're still bound by that upper limit, Yep. You don't magically get extra growth. So you're going to do this death cycle for 8 weeks. Okay. 8 weeks is, what is that? Like 56 days or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at math, at number math. So yeah, so 56 days. So you got like 18 grams times 56. So like 1,000 grams. So that 8 weeks, you have 1,000 grams of protein maximum that you're going to synthesize. You're going to do all those orals and tren for 2 pounds of potential muscle growth, or because that's the upper bound, or you can take them, that 2 pounds is your upper limit every 8 weeks. Why not pick a cycle that allows you to stay healthy, and rather than just be 8 weeks and then be near death and having to go off, stretch that cycle to 16 weeks and come out of the 16 weeks healthy. Then you get twice as much muscle growth and you're healthy at the end of it. No one takes stock of that. It's mind boggling.
Yeah. Bodybuilding is a long game. It really is. You have to have your 10-year plan. It's like, there's really no way to shortcut it.
No. Nick Walker did shortcut it, and that's what the shortcut is: 1 pound per month.
Yeah, 10 years. I remember I saw an interview with him one time. I think he said he started taking gear when he was 16. I think that's what he said. Not that I'm encouraging that, but that's how, people talk about how young he is, but he's been at this a long time.
Yeah. He's been competing for 10 years. Yeah.
How old is that dude? What, 25, 26?
Yeah, so he's probably been competing since, if he took gear and he competed at 16, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his first show is 2012 because he puts up like a comparison, like, before, after, to show how far he's come, which is amazing. Yeah, but even then, that's amazing. But that took 10 years. That's a full decade.
Right.
12 pounds a year.
Yeah, most people don't have the ability to grind away at something like that. I mean, really anything in life is like that. It takes I have my original degree is in music, but there's a thing in music called 10,000 hours to perfection. Where if you've heard that before, but they say it takes 10,000 hours of practice to perfect an instrument. And it's, that seems to apply to a lot of other things in life.
Yeah, just in general, if your goal is the success, the end, you're not going to get there. If you have to love the process. The process has to be your joy, and that's what's going to allow you to reach the end goal, the success. But if you just want the success, you're not getting there, because the success is a fraction of a percent of the whole process. 99.999% of the process is the work and the time. And if you don't enjoy doing that, you're not going to get to that 0.1%.
Yeah, I used to do jujitsu. I used to do quite a bit of jujitsu, and there was always a thing in there. They were saying that you got to get tapped out 10,000 times before you get a black belt.
Oh boy,
I believe it. Yeah,
I mean,
the old school black belt criteria was brutal. You had to like murder someone to get your black belt. It's funny, you see like guys from top academies, that'll be a brown belt, and they'll roll with a black belt, from a different academy, and they'll make the black belt look like a child. It's funny how strict some academies are with giving out that black belt. Some of them have weird rules, like you have to break a bone or something.
Yeah, I went to the academy I went to. The guy actually was from Brazil and came here with the Gracies originally, and he did not give out black belts. I mean, it was 12, 15 years to get a black belt.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the same thing in bodybuilding. I mean, it takes 12. I always laugh when I get these guys that have their one cycle plan to get their pro card. They're going to compete in the local show, qualify for nationals, and then get their pro card in 2 shows.
Yeah. The guys, they always, I don't want to compete until I'm ready to compete as a pro. It's like, well, then you're not going to compete because one, that ain't happening for 15 years, and 2, it's not happening period unless you get a couple of competitions under your belt, because no one, your first competition is always tough, and you don't really start progressing until you start competing. So I get that all the time. Well, I get all the time. I'll get guys nearing 40 who have great physiques. Maybe they're 260 pounds in the off season, and they're still insisting on not competing until they look like a pro. And it's like, dude, you're 37. You've been at this 15 years. Do a show. And I can guarantee that's your only chance of getting that next level. I mean, it's slipping away already because you're getting old, but you're never going to get it unless you compete. Like, I want to be the best competitor, but I'm never going to compete.
Well, it seems that the more people compete too, like the more their, just their physique overall just grows and shapes and kind of, expands a lot faster than if they were just doing their normal kind of deal. Just that it seems like that, you get better at competing by competing, right? So
yeah, I think Paul can attest to that with his, and the post-contest rebound, if handled properly, it was really your way to kind of, that's your one true way to kind of that's the closest thing to a shortcut there is.
Yeah, the rebound. I mean, I was a perma bulker in my 20s. I remember I kept telling myself one more year, and then it just never materialized.
Well, just for people that might not know out there, can you walk through just your progression, Paul? Like, when you first competed and kind of like, and then, what you've done and then what your next plan is. Cause I think that's there's some pretty crazy comparisons from when you started to and that you have on like Instagram and stuff like that out there.
Yeah. When I was in my 20s, I trained with Dante Trudel, actually. Dante trained me back then. Before he was Dante, before everybody even knew who he was. I mean, way back when, like 2002. And I worked with him back then for several years, and I got pretty big. I was a perma bulker, and then I quit lifting for like 10 years. Had a couple bad injuries. I did a powerlifting competition. I ended up rupturing a disc in my back and blowing an ACL out and just like all kinds of shit. And then I'm just like, fuck this. I'm done. And I got tired I trained people. I got tired of people arguing with me all the time about this or that. And I just walked away from it completely. I worked on my business. I did jujitsu, and I just stayed away from it completely. And then the ultimate motivator, I got divorced 5 years ago. And I'm like, I got to get myself back in shape. And so I just kind of got back in and started lifting and got bit by the bug again. I think Justin and I, we've been working together 3 years now?
Almost yeah, I think so. Yeah. And what was your stage weight at your first show? 180, something like that?
185.
What's your weight? What's your weight right now?
Like close to 270.
Yeah. No, I actually, when I presented at Swiss, I used you as my case study for my presentation was post-contest hypertrophy, and basically, why is everyone not taking advantage of this? And people thought your pics were photoshopped when I put them up. No one would believe them.
Well, they can reach out to me. I'll tell them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of a unique situation because I had been big when I was in my 20s. I don't know. I'd say I was powerlifter big. It wasn't like bodybuilder big. There's a difference. I remember Dante, like his diets were crazy. Like he would tell me to go to McDonald's afterwards and eat 4 double cheeseburgers after workouts. And and put protein powder in milkshakes. So that was what I was doing when I was younger. And then I decided to do the show. But yeah, 185, and then I was 237 on stage this year. So that was, I don't know, doing the math, it's like 52 pounds, I think, of stage weight in 1 year.
Yeah.
But it's a bit deceiving because I had been big before. So
yeah, and you were over dieted for that first show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I should have come in at, but so it's not like I, added 52 pounds of real contractile tissue in a year. I don't know,
You've added a lot of size. I mean, you can see the pictures. You've had, because even off season, you've had a lot of size. It's been very impressive. It's been fun.
It's wild. Watch. What's wild too is like people always told me you couldn't gain after 40, and I'm 48.
Yeah. Well, the reasons you can't,
still going strong.
I mean, the reason you can't, hormonal. You don't produce as much testosterone, and typically body fat. Typically, as you age, you have higher body fat levels, so you're going to aromatize more of the testosterone you do produce into estrogen, and then your insulin sensitivity is going to be shit. And so again, going back to it, you stay on top of your insulin sensitivity. You keep your blood sugar or blood pressure under control, so you can use anabolics to skirt the hormonal issue. And you're not over 40 anymore. The reason you can't gain over 40 is because of the natural age adaptations that happen. Well, if you don't, they're not natural. They're because you're not healthy. If you take care of those things, then over 40 doesn't mean anything. I mean, it means something eventually. That wear and tear on the body, but.
I want to ask you guys. I was going to ask you guys because you were talking about like crazy diets from back in the day. Do you guys remember hearing of like Dan Douchaine?
Oh yeah.
Body Opus.
Body Opus. Yep.
I did that diet in high school. So when I competed as a teen, I did that, and it was brutal. I had like teachers sitting down with me and like counselors like asking if I was okay because I was just like looked like a skeleton walking around my school. So that was pretty intense. But did you guys ever try any of that type of a rotation or whatever?
I remember Dan Duchaine's pre-workout. What was it? Ultimate Orange?
Oh, yeah.
I threw up on that a few times.
We had ephedrine.
100 milligrams of ephedrine.
Yeah. Yeah. I took that the first time before my senior year, my first football game, senior year in high school. Oh. And so I was super pumped because I was talking about this. I was a super late bloomer, and my family's all very big. So I was a late bloomer as far as puberty, but puberty and weight training hit me in the same year. So I went from like a 140-pound junior football player to a 240-pound senior football player. So I went from like a little guy on the team wasn't that good to the biggest guy in the whole school, captain of the football team. And so I was so pumped for that first game. I wanted to make sure I was as amped up as possible. So I got my first batch of Ultimate Orange, and probably I was like, I'll do a double. I don't even remember, but I put it up in the shaker bottle, and I'm on the bus and I'm chugging it, and then I felt like I was ejected from a rocket ship. I couldn't even, I was like, my heart rate was like 170 during warm-ups, just all fired up.
I remember throwing up on that stuff a few times.
I mean, that shit was essentially meth.
Yeah. It's so illegal. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was other stuff added, because even 100 milligrams of ephedrine, this stuff still had an extra kick. There may have been meth in it.
Well, you remember that there was that Exenedrin product too in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like I remember I worked in sales, and I was a little punk kid, and I used to pop that before I go to work. Sales job at it was Circuit City. I made like what's called President's Club, like one of the top salesmen in the company, because I just wouldn't shut up. I went up to like every person, like, hey, how's it going? What's going on? What kind of phone you looking at? Let me help you with your phone. Like,
I'm so fucking ready.
Those were the good old days, man. Yeah, I'm looking.
Oh yeah, go to the truck stop, get trucker meth, mini thins. Yeah. Well, if you don't even remember hot stuff. What I think they even got. I think were approved to be putting DBOL in it. This is the mid '90s. That was the first supplement I ever took, and I think I took it after I found out about it. So by then, the good stuff had been removed, and it just tasted like black licorice, and it was just terrible. And it had probably boron and moose testicle in it, and everything that didn't work. But at one point, I had DBOL in it until that got removed, and then suckers like me came in.
Yeah, I remember all those old supplements that would have like meth and DBOL and shit like that in it.
Oh yeah, just the Wild West. I remember my first protein powder. I got it. It was probably like '94, and it was just some crappy brand. And I remember like reading the label, and like in all caps it says must drink immediately after mixing. And I'm like, well, yeah, well, of course I'm going to drink. I'm not going to mix it and just set it out all day. So I blend it up. It's all blended. And I, like, I can't remember. I think I used like maybe like a blending thing, like you push and it would spin. I didn't have like an actual blender, but I'm blending. It's fully blended. It's all looked. I take that thing out and I set it on the table and I go like this. And as I'm bringing it to my mouth, it like coagulates into this like gelatinous mass. It had to be like some kind of collagen protein or something. And I'm like kind of watching this as I'm pulling it back, and my brain's like, oh, I should probably stop. I didn't, and this like snot mucus ball just lumped into my throat. It was disgusting. I wish I remembered what that was so I could find out what the actual protein was in it. But this is pre-whey. This is before anyone was using whey. This is like, there weren't many protein powders. Oh God, it was so terrible.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm glad that we linked up in 2022 when you know as much as you know now about the ingredients and quality and stuff with products, because back in the early 2000s, I remember you were testing so many different ingredients for supplements. I know I'll let you tell the story, but I remember there were many times in between sets running to use the toilet.
Yeah, when the first high molecular weight carbohydrates, waxy maize, we were learning about this probably like 2005 or 2006, and with Dante and from True Nutrition or True Protein at the time, and we were like this, like reading about this, it's like, this is amazing, like this super high molecular weight, low osmolarity, it's this big clump of glucose molecules, tons of surface area, gets in the small intestine. This is gonna revolutionize everything. Well, one of the products we had, there was like 13 different versions of like a high molecular weight carbohydrates or amylopectin variations. This is like number 11 or something. And we took it, and it was like magic. It tasted terrible. It was like battery acid. I mean, it was extremely difficult to get down. And this was a time when I would have drank battery acid to get better, And this was like, just like, get your mind, chug, swallow, don't throw up, chug, swallow, but after you took it, it was like instantly your skin dried out, your vein, it was like it sucked every bit of water in your bloodstream. It was like magic. I remember like furiously like email, because we didn't have text. You had text, but it was the old text where you had to touch each button however many times it was to get to the letter.
That's how old we are.
Yeah, so it's quicker to email, and I'm like emailing Dante. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It tastes terrible, but if you can get the flavor right, I was like, if you did this before you stepped on stage, it's like a miracle product. And so Dante like calls the manufacturer, and he's like, number 11 was amazing. We want to look into getting that bulk produced. The only problem was it tasted terrible. And they responded, they said, taste. He's like, yeah, it tasted terrible. They're like, taste? What do you mean taste? He's like, yeah, it tastes disgusting. We could barely drink it. And the lady goes, that's a filler for wood glue. So just drinking straight poison. I mean, that's probably, my arteries are probably clogged. That was there's wood glue fillers lodged somewhere right over here somewhere still.
Oh man, it was the wild west back then.
Oh, yeah.
Innovation, right? It was all part of innovation, right? So
I found a chlorohydrobiotin. It was a product that I found someone's 1999 nutritional thesis, and it was because I was trying to find things that worked on acetyl-CoA carboxylase 2, which is kind of like a metabolic uncoupler, and basically, like dictates how your mitochondria burns fat. It's like if you could manipulate it, it'd be like the holy grail for fat loss. And so I'm like, finding anything I find online, I find this research paper, and there's like this chlorohydrobiotin. And I contacted the LSU Nutritional Science Department, and they still had it in cold storage. And I pretended I was like a student for some other university, steer serve. Me and my fellow research folks would like to, they sent it to me.
My fellow meatheads.
Yeah. They sent it to me, but then like something in the correspondence must have made it imply that I was going to eat it, and the professor was like, I would strongly advise you. There's been no data. I would strongly advise you not to take this. Blah 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 blah. And so I never did though, because I was like, I want to try it, but I'll try it eventually. I got to pick a day where if something goes bad, I can immediately get to the hospital, and that day never came. But.
Yeah, I remember back then. I think you used to get on Intense Muscle, right? We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Everybody was talking about all these different things. Dante was on there all the time. I remember Dr. Scott Stevenson, John Meadows,
Homunculus. Yeah.
That's
Scott Stevenson's name.
Yeah. I remember that was a crazy board on the Skip Hill. All those guys
Yeah, yeah,
on
oh
there.
yeah.
There was a lot of neat information shared on there back in the day.
Yeah, Skip's still on there. He still runs all his clients there, I think. I mean, that's his board, but I just met him for the first time at Swiss, actually. I've known Skip since the 90s. The first time I met him was on Anabolics, Bolex, probably like 99, and in the nutrition subsection. And at the time, I think I was just starting out. I mean, I don't think I was even having people pay me to do their diets yet. And I would have people not take Clen during peak week. And I think at the time I was cycling like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. And so I just timed it for that. And he changed my mind on that because he actually argued, my argument was that I want to be able to fill out. And his argument was basically that, being dry is more important than being full. And and I remember that conversation because it was like back then you'd actually have good conversations. Now the internet is just, I hate you. No, I hate you even more. I hate every idea you have. But back then you could actually work things out, and he changed my approach to it. But so I've known him, forever, since the 90s. But and that was the first time I ever actually met him in person.
Yeah, Skip's a good guy.
Was he the one back then too? I mean, this is again late 90s, early 2000s. But was he doing like they used to call it a shitload?
Yeah, the skip load. Okay. Yeah, I think the skip load was more. It wasn't straight shit. I believe it was. I'm not even positive, but I believe it was more high sugar based junk food.
Okay. But I just remember being jealous of like the guys who were doing it. And I'm like, hey, Justin, what's going on with this one? This one looks a little tastier than what you got me doing here, man.
Yeah, I actually got rice or candy. Can we try this one? I think it works better.
Yeah, I remember I had him do my diet back in the early 2000s when I would try to lean down, and it was basically like I apologize to him if I'm slaughtering this, but from what I remember, it was like keto during the week, and then he'd give you a time window on Sunday just to basically eat all the fucking sugar you could want to eat. Cereal, pancakes, whatever, man. He'd give you like a 8-hour window just to shovel in as much as you want. I think he underestimated how much junk I could eat.
Yeah. People, I always want to enter like a 4-week out contest bodybuilder in an eating contest. I always felt like, man, I could dominate. You pick me like 3 weeks out of a show, bring me in, I'll eat till I die. I mean, how many wings to win? Can I eat more after that?
No, I was just gonna say, I remember like laying, because Justin, like I get the message, and we're he's coaching, doing my plan, and he's like, all right, this Saturday you got 3 hours to have your crap meal. What he meant was like one sitting. So I remember laying, my feet are like this, and in between him was just like donuts and chips and everything, and I'm just eating, and I fell asleep. There's like powder on my face and everything.
You come at it with a strategy. Okay, 3 hours. If I eat
3 hours,
this
for first 20 minutes,
one bite every 18 seconds, I can maximum. It's like get your calculator.
He's like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, now I understand. It's my early 20s, man. I was a meathead, but now I understand the benefit of the cheat meal and how to maximize it.
Yeah.
One of my friends, who shall remain nameless, but when he finished the show, he gained 30 pounds in 6 days. I'm like, how is that even fucking possible?
There was a kid in Indiana.
He ended up in the hospital.
There's a kid in Indiana who competed as a middleweight in 2002 or 2003 when I was there. He gained 70 pounds in the first 5 days.
Oh my God.
And was hospitalized for like a period of time, severe pancreatitis. And that's 70 pounds on a guy who weighed 160 pounds on stage. But yeah, it's like, geez, you get flash pulmonary edema. I mean, it's insane. Yeah, he was hospitalized for quite a period of time. I got a lot of stories like that. There's another person who shall remain nameless who was also on Intense Muscle, and who was I'm thinking of a bunch of people now. I remember a client that Nate Wolf was one of my nutritionists at the time. He had a client who went like insane, a high school student who was like that super obsessed, did the whole would refuse to have cheat meals, and you'd have to tell him like, no, the cheat meal isn't like a break from the diet. It's to improve things. It's not just how much you suffer. Well, he, in the middle of a class in high school, senior year, he decided he was Jesus. And he was like hallucinating, probably like low blood sugar or something, and stood up and told the class he was Jesus. And it was, man, yeah.
Yeah, my buddy, he ended up in congestive heart failure.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so bad. Yeah.
I'm like, dude, what the fuck did you eat, man? And he was telling me how he had a whole pizza and ate a dozen donuts after the show. And I'm like, my God.
Yeah, I used to have to be careful. My buddy I used to do Muscle Mentor with, Brad Hall, he would always be mesmerized because he was like, my body didn't know how to work ADH, antidiuretic hormone, because he could never gain weight. And I'm like, I can be 300 pounds eating chicken and broccoli if I wanted to. And so we went to the Arnold 2016, the first one I did with that I prepped Luke Sando for, and I ate only off the bodybuilding menu. But because even if I don't want to be fat, I have to restrict what I eat, even when it's clean food. My appetite's just enormous. But while we were there, I was like, I'm just going to eat as much as I want. So I was ordering flank steak and rice, and I gained 16 pounds that weekend eating clean food.
That's crazy. I'm the opposite, man. I lose weight in a hurry. I think I'm naturally a skinny guy.
You're interesting because you can put it on pretty well if you can get the food in, but it takes a lot of food, and we learned at that first prep, your metabolism starts going, and it'll run away. It's like an old diesel truck with a runaway turbo. Like if you're just not careful, it just self-energizes and just burns through everything.
Yeah, man. While I was sick, I had the flu and pneumonia, but the past 2 weeks, I dropped like 16 pounds, 16 pounds, just from that. But the weight comes off. Yeah, it's the opposite with me at the end of prep. Like I hear people talking about not having any energy and whatnot. I get spun up, man. I can't rest. I can't sleep. I'm constantly pacing around.
Yeah, yours went out. I remember that first prep. Your metabolism went run away in a hurry. It was like we couldn't control it. It was like by the time we even realized, you were losing like pounds a day. I'd never seen anything like it. Because usually by the end of prep, guys are like not eating, doing 2 hours of cardio, and they'll not lose weight. Their just body like refuses to, just shuts down. Where yours is like just decided to get on meth. I don't know, like your metabolism just went into overdrive. I mean, like at the end of it all, and I think we talked about it right after show, like, yeah, okay, that was, wish we could have caught that a little earlier, stop the bleeding, not let you so flat on during peak week. But I knew it was going to be like a magical rebound because you were just absolutely primed for like the best slingshot of growth imaginable, coming long diet after the layoff, used to be big, regaining some lost muscle that got lost in the last weeks of prep, and you were just completely depleted in every way, water and glycogen. And that's like if you could design, if you're playing a video game, and it's like you got to design your starting point, that's what you would design. Like an older guy, knew the ropes, knew how to gain size, had been big before, got back into it, and now he's over dieted and over depleted. Let's see what we can do. That was fun.
Well, you're going to hate me when I tell you this, but this year I didn't even do any of the HIIT cardio. I just walked on the treadmill, man.
Well, I have a fun HIIT comment on that one. So I was kind of similar where I sent Justin pictures, like, I don't know when this was like a year and a half ago. And I'm like, yeah, I think next year, because I competed in my early 20s for a while, and then late teens, early 20s. And then what was I, 39 or something, 38, 39, whatever. Hey, here's some pictures, what do you think? And he's like, no, like compete now, just do it now. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I do it. And then fast forward, like I'm deep in the prep and I was at your house. I'm like, yeah. He's like, how's it going? I was going, that's not that bad. It's not that bad. He's like, I was like, the only thing, man, is just this HIIT cardio is just killing me. And he goes, HIIT cardio? What do you mean? Aren't you like 2 weeks out? I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to say you can drop that off 2 weeks ago. I'm like, you like, you're killing me, man. So I was like, thanks a lot, buddy. Like,
yeah, well, the HIIT cardio there's two different reasons. There's in the off season, it's because I don't want you doing cardio. I don't want to waste time. I want to make sure that, especially for the bigger guys, because when you're 270, that's a lot of oxygenated tissue. That's a lot of muscle that requires oxygen. So when you were doing high reps of squats or high rep back movement, I don't want your lungs to be the failure point. And that's very quickly to happen. I mean, and if you don't think it will, imagine a set of 20 on squats, are you failing because your muscles are burning? Or are you failing because you're getting out of breath? When you're nearing 300 pounds, it's much more likely it's out of breath. So the HIIT cardio in the off season is for that. It gets us in. Because I don't do HIIT like it's not real HIIT. It's a modified HIIT. It's not like 15 seconds hard, then take a break. It's like 1 minute harder, 1 minute lighter. And the thinking is like, because, like a 20 rep set of squats is going to be a 1 minute set. And so we want to optimize around our training. And that's anything you can do for a minute on cardio, but that's hard, but also not so hard that you can't also recover in the next minute to do it again. So it's not quite HIIT, and that's our off season. And then, those are like, I do that like like 10, 12, 14, 16-minute increments. So you're only like a 12-minute set. You're only doing 6 minutes of work. But that'd be like 6 high rep sets, So we get done, we boost your appetite. We didn't burn that many calories. We certainly didn't burn too many calories that we can't make up for with food, and especially with the increased appetite. And then it improves your training. In prep, it's a little different. In prep, it's really because it lets us burn more cardio per minute. I can do 20 minutes of HIIT and burn more calories than if I did 30 minutes of. With the bigger guys, I'm slowly. HIIT cardio is hard when you get up over 20 minutes when you're 260 pounds. So I'm using more LISS now with the bigger guys than I had in previous years.
Yeah, I just assumed that it was because it was a higher energy output. It was just purely math. You're getting more bang for the buck. But I don't know, man. I do it in the off season. I'll do the HIIT in the off season. I usually get on the step mill and I'll grind it out, or the elliptical. I'll do it on the elliptical sometimes. But I'll be honest with you, this year I just walked on the treadmill for my contest prep.
I mean, I'm not planning to compete or anything. So my only care is that I still want to be able to train hard, but I kind of titrate mine around that. Like, if I do like I've been doing a lot of supersets, like sissy squats, a freestanding sissy squat superset with back squats. And when it gets to where those are lung sets rather than muscle sets or leg sets, then I'm like, okay, I got to add some sessions back in. And then until I can get to where I feel, usually within 3 weeks, I'm like, okay, I'm grinding these out again. Time to get lazy with the cardio, and then until it cycles back.
I just have a crazy metabolism. I always have. I mean, when I graduated college, I was 170 pounds. I was just, and I'm almost 6'2", so I'm a skinny guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I was telling you about this, Paul, last time we were recording or talking. I started doing like bag work and did Krav Maga a few times too, and that just kind of helped, like, just going in and doing that type of training. Like, it was a break from like staring at the treadmill or at the wall, but it was also like little bursts here and there, and it was kind of functional as well. So it was kind of a nice break. I actually need to start that up again, but and then the bag training, I felt like my legs weren't as banged up because I would do a split, like glutes, hamstrings, calves, and then did like more quad dominant on a different day, and was all that cardio on the Stairmaster or whatever. I was just like, man, I was just constantly sore. So like, hitting the bag just upper body wise too was kind of felt like a nice little break. So, I think it's just, as long as you're getting the heart rate up, you're gonna see good things come from it.
Yeah, when it's nice out, I like get outside and walk in, or take it. I'm not too far from the mountains. I'll do like a light hike or something like that. That's what I usually do. But I don't have any problems getting lean. At least I haven't in the past. Maybe that'll change.
Oh, it's funny because I'm so the opposite. Even I've never not been on a calorie restricted diet, even in the off season. I mean, it's funny. I mean, that's why I became a coach and a nutritionist, because I always had to be on point. But even at my biggest, even at 300 pounds, I was still limiting my food to, and I was eating clean food and eating less than I wanted to. I don't know what's wrong with me. There's a guy, Terrere or something like that, a French guy from like the 1800s, Terre, maybe something like that. It's a funny story. If you listen to the stories, he would eat like live cats, and they think he was maybe eating children, babies, and just like an insatiable appetite. And sometimes I'm like, I wonder if, like, because I could put some food down. I never lose my appetite, and just always, even when I'm full, if you put food in front of me, I'm thinking like, oh man, that would be so good. And another problem is my taste buds I like everything. That was always the joke when I was an engineer and I would travel, and they would like pick restaurants, and they would, afterwards people kind of critique the meal, and they're like, how'd you like the meal? I was like, oh my God, it's amazing. That's like, do you ever not love I was like, no, I mean, did I ever tell you about the worst food I ever ate? It was amazing.
I don't remember if I do have to bring this up though, because maybe we can go after him offline on this one. But I think when I was interviewing John Rivas, I think he said he beat you in like a sushi eating contest or something. I think it was in Vegas, maybe.
No, that was where were we? But that was because I
Cutler show or something.
That was because I ate right before we went to the place.
Oh, so the truth comes out. You ate before you went.
I ordered Grubhub, and I was just finishing up, and we left for that. But
it's funny how you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Because I mean, I felt like I didn't feel like a man. I felt like it's like someone ate more than me. But I didn't know we were in a contest. If I would have known, I would have. No, I'm kidding. Speaking of sushi, I think I've told the story before, but it needs to be told. I wish I had video evidence of it. But Fouad Abiad in 2015, we did a seminar at Ken Jackson's gym with John Meadows and God, I can't remember who else was there. Santi was there. Ken was there. But really good turnout, great seminar. But we all went to sushi afterwards, and Fouad was dieting, and Meadows' was coach then at the time, whoever it was, gave him a cheat meal. Went to sushi, and I could like list numbers, and it would absolutely not describe it. I don't know how he didn't die. I've never seen, you watch Nathan's hot dog eating contest, and they're like, they eat 70 hot dogs. It's nothing. 70 hot dogs is a pile like this, He ate at least 200 pieces of salmon nigiri. And he was ordering roll. I mean, I just like, and because I've had huge cheat meals. I've eaten, I think I took 2 large pizzas down one time, like on a cheat meal. I mean, I've eaten massive amounts of food. I've got like my name on walls all across the country, like restaurants that have eating challenges. This was mind blowing. They brought out just, because they have like they have the big plates and the boats, If you go more than a boat, they have like those catering trays that don't even fit on the table. They're like, this big, just they brought that out with nothing but salmon nigiri, just roll after roll after roll, like 200 pieces. And that was aside from his rolls, and he got other types of nigiri, and he just sitting there, just while everyone's talking, and it was like, it was like, if you ever like see the Simpsons episode when Homer like goes to hell and they try to feed him donuts to as torture, and he just like, and it was just, I have no idea like how that compressed into his stomach. Even if his stomach blew up to the size of like, when they just burst those old water packs or whatever, and those things, they just blow up to the size of a massive balloon. That thing could have been a hot air balloon. It was mind-boggling, and I think about that anytime anyone brings up food, because I've never been so amazed in my life. It had to be like 36 pounds of sushi.
That's crazy. That's insane. I've heard stories about Big Ramy too. I heard somebody, a friend of a friend, who went to dinner with him, said it was an ungodly amount of food that he ate.
I believe it. There's that Kai Green when he, after a show in like years ago, maybe like 2010 or 11, and they went to like a Denny's or something. And they showed he spent like $268 or something at Denny's, and they showed his thing, and it was like 4 orders side salad, 3 orders T-bone steak, and it was just ding 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 ding, line after line after line.
Did you see that thing with Ronnie Coleman recently, where he was saying that he ate at Denny's every day for his pro bodybuilding career? Said he thinks he spent over $100,000. I think it was over $100,000.
I gotta see that.
Or was it IHOP? It might have been IHOP.
Maybe. But, I remember, do you remember like Cost Redemption? He ate out every meal, It was like black eyed peas, Chipotle, or, it's meal after meal after meal.
Yeah, I think it was IHOP.
Yeah, genetics. Those genetics. Like because you see the gamut, like work with people, and you see it's really remarkable how some people process nutrients, and like, there's a genetic component to anything. You don't play left tackle in the NFL unless you were born a giant, 6'8", 330. You don't play wide receiver unless you were born like a rocket. You got to run a 4.3 or under now. You don't pitch in the majors unless you can throw 100 miles an hour. But some people have like 100-mile-an-hour metabolism, or some people have like 400-foot home run power metabolisms, and it's remarkable to watch. I got a client, Cody Losi, taller guy, but God, I think we're at 1,000 grams of carbs on his medium day, and like 1,500 grams on his high day. And he has 3 of them a week, and we have him drinking like I think 2 gallons of half strength Gatorade a day, and he's a big boy, he's 280 or whatever, but it's, and I think I want to say 70 or 80 grams of protein per meal, and we're adding fat, and it's just like, it's unbelievable. Ben Pollock was another one. Ben Pollock, I think we were at 850 or 900 grams of carbs on his medium day, and like 1,200 on 3 high days a week, and he had striated glutes.
Yeah, he's a local guy to here, or at least he used to be. But I've heard people talk about him eating the amount of food that he could eat.
Yeah, and he's incredibly strict. Even his cheat meals weren't. They were just, he just stopped measuring the food. He ate the same foods. Yeah, he'd make a bunch of egg whites, then mix it in his rice, and he was like, he wasn't even paying attention, just pounding it down while you're like, I don't think he put seasoning on it or anything, but crazy metabolism.
I'm a no seasoning guy. I'm terrible. There's a guy at my gym. We talked about him before, Brandon Barrow.
Yeah,
And
good
he is all. I think people underestimate the role eating goes into this. Really, I mean, I talk about it all the time. People get upset, but I like Brandon always is eating. Like he's always got a bowl of food with him walking around the gym, shoveling down food.
Yeah. I mean, Joe and I always talk. I would miss a workout before I miss a meal 100%. Meals that diet was non-negotiable. I didn't want to miss a workout, but if a wedding came up or, like a kid's birthday, you'd miss a workout. You never miss a meal. And people don't want to believe that. And it's the weirdest thing because all the people telling you that are the top guys. They're the ones saying, and it's like all the like the little guys who look like shit are, want it to be gear. And obviously gear is involved. Everyone's using it, and that's, you can't like minimize the value of that. But you get a bunch of like permabulker 24-year-olds who barely look like they work out, put them in a circle, they're going to talk about gear. You get a bunch of like pro bodybuilders together, they talk about food. That's it. That's all. What's your diet like right now? What are you eating? They never ask what your cycle is, because they know, what is there, like 12 compounds? I mean, there's 50 anabolics ever invented? Like everyone's using the same stuff. There's no mystery there. It's all the food. You get a bunch of bodybuilders sitting around, that's all they talk about. And even worse, like you get a bunch of bodybuilders going somewhere, and that's what they're all nervous and stressed about is, how long is this going to last? Anyone know you got food order? I don't know. I didn't make my food yet. Do you have any? What am I going to do? How long does it take to get food around here? It's all food.
Yeah, it's wild seeing Brandon. I mean, he's a big dude, and he's just constantly, like, he looks miserable. He's over there eating until he looks like he's gonna throw up, and I see him like taking breaths between bites of food, and
that's struggling for your life. It's like fighting for your life there under that chicken and rice.
I have a hard time getting it down sometimes. My appetite isn't always the best.
My appetite's fine, but it's more the cooking and cleaning all the time. I'm like, oh man, that pan's dirty. Like, maybe I won't get sick if I just throw the meat out of it.
That's seasoning. It builds up.
Exactly.
Develops its own
flavor.
Seasoning. Yeah.
It's seasoned. All right, guys. I know we had an hour blocked off. We probably going past that. I really appreciate you taking the time out for me. Anything you guys, or you want to talk about the supplement company a little bit before we jump off?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're happy. We're glad we're able to sponsor you. We love what you're doing with the podcast and everything you do on social media. You like kind of just stormed on the scene, and you talking about the things that need to be talked about in a way that needs to be presented. Like it's really well thought out presentation, and I love that you're getting a great response from it. We want to be included as a part of it, and you've been a client, you've been a great client, so we're really happy to be involved. The supplement company is First Detachment, and go to firstdetachment.com. It's like we said, we cater more. I mean, we cater to anyone, obviously, but we're designed for bodybuilders, by bodybuilders, for bodybuilders. We have intra-workout nutrition that I preach forever. Field Rations is one of our best sellers. Our WTF pre-work. We get 2 flavors now. There isn't a better pre-workout on the market. You're going to love it. It covers everything. It's not just pure stimulation. Most places do pure stimulation to just fry you, which is great. You want to be amped up, but you don't want to be anxious. And so we have anxiolytics and adaptogens on top of the stimulants to kind of temper that. So you're amped to the full extent, but you're also not anxious. And then other little things that other companies neglect. You'll see citrulline malate in products, and because citrulline is a great product. Why do they use citrulline malate? Well, it's got better bioavailability technically, but no one digs deeper into the science behind it. The problem with that is citrulline malate is L-citrulline bound to malic acid. You can't absorb citrulline malate. You have to break them into components. So the first thing that happens is that enters the body. Then you have to break apart you have to cleave that malic acid from the L-citrulline, which takes time because your stomach's already acidic itself. And then absorb the L-citrulline. So how long does that take? That might take an hour and a half. So you take your pre-workout driving to the gym. That's great, right? Your last set of the workout, that L-citrulline is really kicking in. You don't want that. So what we did is we used just pure L-citrulline to bypass that. So it gets absorbed immediately. You have it available during your workout. And to offset the fact that it's slightly lower bioavailability, we have a full 10 grams of it in there. So we eat the cost on that. We don't upcharge you for that cost. We eat the cost on that to make a more effective product. And we do that across the board. Our suppressor is, clinically dosed levels of berberine. Everything's designed to maximize what we do. Our canopy digestive aid, like we talked about earlier, we don't have a digestive aid that's just acidophilus or just probiotics. We have those in there, but ours is designed for what we have issues with digestion, like we just talked about, the massive amounts of food. You know, we want to be able to continue eating. We want to absorb that. We don't want that bogging us down or you know, sitting in our stomach. And so our canopy is designed to maximize that. You know, you're going to use orals. I'm not a fan of orals, especially in the off season, but your liver enzymes are going to be elevated, and they're going to be elevated just from training, because the byproducts of muscle breakdown are processed by the liver. And so we have our QRF with NAC, and we go through the hoops and we go through the issues of getting that produced, which is not easy. You know, we got TUDCA in it also, and we just do it across the board. You know, our fat burner Go pills. You see a fat burner, what do? They add like garglesterones, all these things that don't work but have big names, and you know, and just give you acid reflux, but so they can list 75 ingredients. We didn't do that. We said, what works? You know, we need to block adenosine. Adenosine is what makes you feel tired. Adenosine, blocking of adenosine is why caffeine increases fatty acid oxidation. So we have caffeine, but we also have teacrine for the same reason. We have L-theanine as an anxiolytic. We have yohimbine, but what's the problem with yohimbine? Yohimbine can make you like clammy, you know, especially at higher doses. So we dropped the dose in half of the yohimbine, so it's just 2.5 milligrams. So even people who are sensitive to yohimbine are able to take it. And we have green tea, but what's beneficial about green tea? Green tea isn't magic. It's the components of green tea. It's the EGCG. And so our green tea, we don't have green tea. We have standardized EGCG specifically at the dose that maximizes fat burning. And all of our products are designed like that with one goal in mind: what works. Me as a former competitive bodybuilder, what would I have wanted to take to improve my health and improve my ability to compete? And that was the sole focus in the formulation design.
That's awesome, man. I've had good results with everything so far. And I really appreciate you guys coming on and talking about it. I'll put everything down in the comment section or in the description. Links to everything and discount code as well will be down there as well if you guys want to check it out. I appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, we'll see you.
This video is brought to you by First Detachment Nutrition. Battle tested, expert formulated. Use discount code AB10 at checkout for 10% off.